This is a video key for the practice A side of your trig ratios homework. Let's get started. Number 1. What the directions read in exercises 1 through 3, fill in the blanks to complete each definition. Then use side links from the figure to complete the indicated trig ratios. Alright, so again, we have a triangle right here. We have the right angle. Across from the right angle, or the side opposite the right angle, is always going to be your hypotenuse. So I'm going to go ahead and label that. Then we have sides A and sides B. Right? So number 1, the sine of an angle is the ratio of the length of the leg opposite the angle to the length of the hypotenuse. Alright, so we're trying to find the sine of A. Remember, the capital letter we're using for the angles, so sine A, so this is angle A right here. The side opposite would be little a, and the hypotenuse, of course, would be C. If we're trying to find the sine of B, again, we're talking about angle B, capital B. This is angle B right here, and the side opposite of it is going to be little b, and it's going to be little b over little c, which is the hypotenuse. So again, it's opposite over hypotenuse. That's where we're getting these letters from. So the side opposite of capital A is little a, C is the hypotenuse. The side opposite of capital B is little b, and C is the hypotenuse. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2. The cosine of an angle is the ratio of the length of the leg adjacent to the angle to the length of the hypotenuse. Okay, so the way it's going to look is going to be adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. So we know we're using the lowercase letter c as our hypotenuse. So we have lowercase c here, so we should also have lowercase c here. Okay, so if we're trying to find the cosine of angle A, capital A, here's A. So we want to find the side adjacent to A, which is going to be B, lowercase b, and the denominator is going to be the hypotenuse. If we're trying to find the cosine of B, capital angle B, here's B, and the side adjacent to B is lowercase a, and the hypotenuse stays C. Okay, remember the hypotenuse is always going to be the side opposite the right angle. Okay, number 3, the tangent of an angle, or the tan of an angle, is the ratio of the length of the leg opposite the angle to the length of the leg adjacent to the angle. Remember, everything depends on the angle, so you have to correctly identify the angle that you're using before you can find the leg that's opposite and before you can find the leg that's adjacent. So we're trying to find the tan of angle A. Angle A is here. Okay, so we're going to put opposite as our numerator and adjacent as our denominator. Notice how for tan, we do not use the hypotenuse. So again, going back to the figure, we're trying to find the tan of angle A, which is right here in our figure. So the side opposite of it is lowercase a, which is why it's our numerator. The side adjacent to it is going to be lowercase b. If we're trying to find the tan of angle B, here's angle B. The side opposite of it is lowercase b, and the side adjacent to that is lowercase a. Alright, the next section says, use the figure for exercises 4 through 6. Write each trig ratio as a simplified fraction and as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredths. So we're going to need 2 answers for 4 through 6. We're going to need a simplified fraction, and we're going to need a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredths. Okay, so they want us to use this figure for 4 through 6, and looking at this figure, I notice that the right angle is here, and remember the side opposite the right angle is always your hypotenuse. I'm going to abbreviate that as HYPO, hypo. Alright, number 4, they want us to find the sine of L. Well, first, what is sine? Well, sine is always going to be opposite over hypo. Okay, going back to the figure, we said that the hypotenuse is 10, so 10 is going to be our denominator. Now we just need to find the side that's opposite of angle L. So put your finger on angle L, and the side opposite of it is MN, and that side measures 6. So 6 is going to be our numerator. Now the directions ask for a simplified fraction and a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredths. We know this fraction isn't simplified, so if I divided both the numerator and denominator by 2 over 2, I'm going to get 3 over 5. So that's our simplified fraction. 3 over 5, if I put that in my calculator and I divide it, I know 3 over 5 is equal to 0.60. Remember, we want to round to the nearest hundredths. Alright, so again, we have two answers for number 4. We have 3/5 and we have 0.60. Okay, number 5. They want us to find the cosine of angle L now. So what is cosine? Well, cosine is always going to be adjacent, and I'm going to abbreviate it as ADJ, over the hypotenuse. Well, from the previous question, we know that the hypotenuse is 10, so 10 is going to be our denominator. So which side is adjacent to angle L? So again, go to your figure, point to angle L. The side that's adjacent to angle L is 8. Okay? And the reason I know it's 8 is because we already know that 10 is a hypotenuse. That does never change. Whatever side is opposite the right angle is always going to be your hypotenuse. So A is adjacent to angle L, and so that means 8 is going to be our numerator. Alright, so we need to simplify this fraction. We're going to divide both the top and the bottom, the numerator and denominator, by 2 over 2. And we're going to get 4/5. And we know 4/5 is equal to the decimal 0.8. 8 tenths or 80 hundredths. Remember, we're going out to the hundredths place value, so we need to put that 0 there. So our two answers for number 5 are going to be 4/5 and 80 hundredths. Number 6, they want us to find the tan of angle M. So number 6, we need to find a tan, and remember, tan is always going to be opposite over adjacent. Again, notice how for tan, we do not use the hypotenuse. So we're not going to use the number 10 because we don't need it. Okay? So tan of M. So angle M is right here. The numerator needs to be the side opposite of M. So the side opposite of M is 8. So 8 is going to be our numerator. Our denominator is going to be the side adjacent or next to M, angle M, which is 6. We're going to reduce this fraction, or we're going to simplify it by dividing by 2 over 2, and we get 4 over 3. If we put that into our calculator, we immediately know that this is an improper fraction, so the answer is going to be greater than 1, and the answer is going to be 1.33 repeating. Okay, so those are our two answers for number 6. Again, that was 4/3 or 1 33 hundredths repeating. Alright, 7 through 9 should be the easiest because all you have to do is plug these into the calculator. Make sure though, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Okay, if it's in radian mode, you're not going to get the right answers for this, and it might be explaining why you're not getting the answers you should be getting. Okay, so make sure, go ahead and go to your settings. You might want to pause the video and make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Okay, number 7. We're going to use the calculator again to find the trig ratio, and we're going to round to the nearest hundredths. Alright, so I'm going to use my phone for this. We want to find sine of 33, so type in sine, hit trig. If you're using your calculator, your Inspire, you're going to go to trig ratios and enter sine. Then we're going to put sine 33, and when we hit enter, we get 0.54. Remember, we're rounding to the hundredths, and since there's a 4 to the right of the hundredths place value, we're going to leave this number in the hundredths place value as 4. Remember, 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. So the answer for this one is going to be 0.54. 5, 4. Number 8, they want us to find the cosine of 47. So cosine 47, enter. We have 0.681. Again, we're rounding the hundredths place value. Since this number is 4 or less, I'm going to let it rest at 8. And so our answer is going to be 0.68. Number 9, they want us to find the tan of 81. So tan 81, hit enter, and I get 6.31. Again, we're rounding the hundredths place value. Since the number to the right is 4 or less, I'm going to leave it as a 1 here. So we have 6.31, or 6 31/100. Use a calculator and trig ratios to find each length. Round to the nearest hundredth. So we're going to round to the nearest hundredths. So let's look at number 10 and try to figure out which ratio or which trig function we're going to use. Now, they want us to find the length of side BD. So let's look at for side BD in this triangle. BD is right here. And what I immediately notice is that BD is the side opposite of the right angle, which would make BD the hypotenuse. Now, since we're going to be looking for the hypotenuse, that only leaves us with being able to use sine or cosine. Remember, tangent does not use the hypotenuse. So we've narrowed it down to 2. We're either going to be using sine or cosine. Now let's look at the other information they gave us. They gave us angle B. So put your finger in angle B. Okay. They also gave us this side right here, side DC. Now, how is DC related to angle B? Well, DC is opposite angle B. So since DC is opposite, we're going to be using sine. Okay? Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? So we're going to be finding the sine of angle 62, or angle B, is equal to opposite, which is 11, over hypotenuse, which we don't know. Okay? So what we're going to want to do right now is we're going to want to rearrange this so that hypo is equal to 11 over sine of 62. Okay? So you're going to plug in 11 divided by sine 62 into your calculator. Okay? And I'm going to plug it into my phone. So 11 divided by sine of 62 is going to be equal to 12.458. Now remember, we're rounding to the nearest hundredths. 5 is in the hundredths place value. Since the number to the right is 5 or more, we're going to raise the score, or we're going to raise 5 up to 6. So our answer is going to be equal to 12.46. So the hypotenuse is equal to 12.46. So BD is equal to 12.46, or 12 46/100. Number 11. They want us to find the length of side QP. Now let's look at the triangle and see what information they gave us. They gave us the hypotenuse, RQ, and we know it's the hypotenuse because it's opposite the 90-degree angle. So they gave us the hypotenuse. Since they gave us the hypotenuse, we know we're not going to be using tangent. So our options are either sine or cosine. Now, they also gave us angle Q. So again, always put your finger in the angle. And let's see how side QP is related to angle Q. Well, it's not opposite of angle Q because opposite would have been side RP. So that means it has to be adjacent or next to angle Q. So since we're looking for the adjacent and we have the hypotenuse, we're going to be using cosine for number 11. Okay, and if you remember, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. We're going to be finding the cosine of angle Q, which is 38 degrees. And the adjacent, we do not know it, but we know the hypotenuse is 25. Alright, since 25 is our denominator over here, and we want to get the adjacent on the right-hand side all by itself, I'm going to multiply both sides by 25. These two cancel out, and we're left with only adjacent on this side, on the right-hand side. And on the left, we are left with 25 times the cosine of 38 degrees. So go ahead, get your calculator, and plug that in. So we're going to type in 25 times the cosine of 38 degrees. And we get 19.70, 19.70, or 19.70. So the adjacent side in this triangle is about 90 and 70 hundredths, 19 and 70 hundredths. Okay, so we have 19.70. Alright, number 12. They want us to find the length of side RS. Okay, so RS is right here, so it's not the hypotenuse. Okay, so let's look at the other information they gave us. They gave us this side right here, which is RT. RT is equal to 5, and they gave us angle T. Alright, so we're looking for RS. They gave us RT. So since neither of those are the hypotenuse, that means we're going to be using tangent for this one. Alright, so once we know we're using tangent, we're going to write down the formula for tangent. The formula for tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, so let's go back to the figure. They gave us angle T. Okay, so put your finger in angle T. The side opposite of angle T would be RS. Okay, the side opposite of angle T would be RS. So that makes RS our opposite side, and that makes RT our adjacent side. Okay, so if we take these numbers, or we take these knowns and unknowns, and we plug it into the formula, we're going to have the tan of angle 27 is equal to opposite, which we don't know, over adjacent, which is 5. Okay, we want to get the opposite on the right hand side of the equal sign all by itself. So to get it over there, we need to undo this division by multiplying both sides by 5. Okay, so these two cancel out, and we're left with opposite on the right hand side, and on the left hand side we're left with 5 times tan 27. Okay, so you're going to go to your calculator. 5 times tan 27, and we get 2.55. 2.55, so about 2.55. So the opposite side in this triangle measures about 2.55. Okay. Alright, last but not least, number 13. The glide slope is the path a plane uses while it is landing on a runway. The glide slope usually makes a 3-degree angle with the ground. A plane is on the glide slope and is 1 mile or 5,280 feet from touchdown. Use the tangent ratio and a calculator to find EF, the plane's altitude to the nearest foot. Okay, so since we're using foot, or since we're using feet, we're not going to need this 1 mile information. We are going to use the angle of 3, which is right here in our figure. And they told us we're going to use a tangent ratio. Now, since if you don't understand why we're going to use tan instead of sine or cosine, look at the diagram. The plane is 1 mile away from the airport. Okay, so that's going to be right here. And we're looking for the altitude, or the height, or the feet above ground that the plane currently is at. So we're looking for EF. Okay, EF is our unknown. So looking at the figure, we do not have the hypotenuse, which means we don't have it, and we're not looking for it, which means we have to use tangent. Okay, so for number 13, if you remember, tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. Alright, and they gave us angle D. So put your finger in angle D. The side opposite of angle D is going to be side EF, so EF is going to be our opposite. The side adjacent or next to D is this side right here, which is DF, and that one, they said, is 5,280 feet. Okay, so our opposite side we are looking for, so we don't know it, but the adjacent side is 5,280 feet. Alright, we want to get the opposite on the right hand side of this equation all by itself, but we need to undo this division, so we're going to multiply both sides by 5,280. When we multiply the right hand side by 5,280, these two cancel out, and we're left with opposite. On the left-hand side, we have 5,280 times tan 3. Okay, we're going to take our calculator, and I'm going to type in 5280 times tan 3, and we should get 277.71. Now, they wanted us to round it to the nearest foot, so I'm assuming the nearest whole foot. So the 1 is going to be the place value we're rounding, and since there's a 7 in the 10th place value, we're going to round this 6 up to a 7. And so if we round it to the nearest foot, the plane is about 277 feet above the ground. Okay, so the opposite is about 277 feet above the ground. Okay, so the answer to number 13 is 277 feet. Hope this has helped you out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in class.